Here is a Carrier XC series air conditioner. I picked this up, I believe it was last year, on Faceblog Marketplace, and from what I understand, this was used up until last year when I bought it. It sat through last year because I bought it earlier on in the spring. It sat through last year and it sat through most of this year, and then I finally cleaned it up and installed it about a month ago. I installed it at the beginning of August, or now towards the end of August, and I'm only to use it about 3 times I think this month, because the heat kind of calmed down a bit after it turned into August, and it was kind of becoming unaffordable to run the air conditioners anyways, because the electricity taxes was going through the roof, and still is. But today it is currently 88.5 degrees out with 65% humidity. This is the first day in a while that I felt like it's really quite uncomfortable out, so we're going to go ahead and turn this on, at least for a couple hours. I have a feeling it might not cool off tonight, and it might become very damp, so this might run overnight tonight. But I have a suspicion that this will be the last day for the air conditioners for this cooling season, because we're already into August 28, and it's rare to have 90-degree days in September. Usually September is high 70s at most, and that's all of what's in the forecast after today. So this Carrier is oh boy, it's very dark in here. Why is it so dark in there? Let me see if I can get some more lighting on the matter. Let's just grab a flashlight. I'm just going to have to read the data sheet to you because it's even hard to see in the person here. It says it is the Carrier model number XCA121D, as in duh. The BTU rating is 12,000 BTU cool, so it's 1 ton. The watts is not present. Amps is 10.5, and then watts input is 1,200. EER of 10, which is actually quite high for this form factor machine, especially from the 90s. This takes 37.5 ounces of 22, and the date code is 02 of 94. I just find it very interesting how the machines have really not become any more efficient over the last 30 years. If you buy a traditional unit like this with a regular AC fan motor, AC compressor, etc., AC referring to alternating current, as in non-inverter system, that's about as efficient as they come. You might be able to find a 12, but that's about it. I know there's some discrepancy in regards to, I know the EER and SEER aren't exactly the same, and now the manufacturers are using SEER because the number is higher, which is just a stupid sales gimmick. The bottom line is this is an excellent machine, and kind of like I had talked about a few days ago with that ceiling fan over there, a lot of collectors are starting to write these off because they're from the 90s, which is not as old as the 80s or the 50s or the 20s or the 1800s or whatever you want to go for. And I just don't understand why, because objectively, this is an excellent piece of equipment. It's powerful, it's reliable, it lasts a long time, it's quiet, it cools very well. So I don't understand. In fact, in my opinion, I think that this era of unit is some of the best for regular daily operation, because these machines are old enough to still be built very well, still use the 22, still be reliable, but by the 90s the efficiency was getting higher. I don't know what it was that got figured out, but something got figured out, and the units could now be, 9, 10, 11 EER as opposed to 6 or 7 like you would see in the 70s. And while I have absolutely no objection to running an air conditioner with an EER of 4 as long as it cools good and lasts a long time, with the way the light bill is right now, I'll take the 10 and save a couple bucks and run something a little bit newer. I have found that the power draw on this thing at nighttime, when it's cool out, can go down to as low as 8 point something amps, which is not much for a 1-ton unit. During the day, like right now, it's 85 degrees in the house and 88 degrees outside. Probably going to pull, what did we say it was rated for? Did we say 10 or 12? I think it's going to be at least 10 or 11, I would expect. The amps is 10.5. I think that we're actually going to exceed that, because this is pretty much, aside from the unit sitting in direct sunlight, which would be even worse, this is pretty much a worst case scenario here. So I actually picked a good day to do the test, because now we can see how it performs under heavy load conditions. These are more or less like the International series internally, same basic design. This was the successor to the International. The cover changed from silver, which was actually very ahead of its time in styling back in the 80s, and now it's white. It's kind of funny, because nowadays I think people would probably go for the silver one more than the white one. It's got the concealed controls here. The door is a little bit messed up, so we're just going to take that off for the video. The only thing I don't like about these machines is the fan speed knob is over too far to the right. So when I go to turn it, I typically grab the knob like this, and I grab it and I can't turn it because my finger won't fit in between there. You have to kind of grab it like that. But that's really my only complaint with the unit. Very, very quiet fan. We'll go ahead and start it up now on low. And it does have a pretty cool startup sound, so we'll try to capture that from the outside here. That's low fan. It does have that overkill big yellow blade on there, which is kind of cool. It's almost inaudible on low fan. It's so hot in here, this doesn't even click off. Well, I'm not going to be able to show the startup sound of the fan speed on high without the compressor coming on, so we'll just go to cool. Beautiful. Turn this down. I usually keep it around 8 or 10. 10's about 73 degrees. Probably about 76 over there. At 119.6 volts, 8.4 amps. That should go up a fair bit as the head pressure builds. So that's low cool. It's already getting cool. Medium. Both low and medium are exceptionally quiet. And high gets some fan noise, but for a 12K, this is exceptionally quiet. I think this is probably the quietest 12K I've ever experienced. Got two registers here that can be angled separately, which is kind of neat. And it does have the directions inside as well. We're up to 10.3 amps now. 1,173 watts. I gotta go grab the temperature thing. I forgot to grab the temperature. I got the temperature meter. The thermometer in the room here is reading 85.6. This thing is reading It's like 84, 84.2, 83. We'll say this is saying about 84. So if we get 64 out of this, it's doing its job properly. That's not a very impressive temperature, but since the input temperature is so high, you have to allow for higher output temperature. Now we're down to 62 already, so it's certainly doing its job properly. 63. Seems to be stable at 63. Now the fan speed slows down considerably on these lower settings. Actually, it was not as much of a difference as I was expecting. I can tell it's making a big difference on the condenser though. The compressor sounds like it's under substantially more load now than it was a few seconds ago running on the high speed. That feels very cold. That's 57. So that's 10.9 amps, which is over the rating, but not by a concerning amount. If we go to high, I think we'll go back under the rating. We jumped up to 12 momentarily from the addition of the fan. It's going back down 11.6, 11.5, 11.4, 11.3, 11.2, 11.1, 11. 10.9. The fan motor consumes quite a bit of power on this thing. Looks like we're going to sit at 10.9 for a while. Which is 0.4 over the rated power, but I think that's fine. That's not a concern to me at all. I think that the fan speed on these was a little bit too slow on low. I'll be the first to say I like a nice, quiet, slow, low speed. But when you've got the condenser fan tied to the evaporator fan, and you cut the speed in a quarter or less on low, you're just not getting enough cooling through the condenser. I wouldn't run this on low unless it's like 75 or lower out. Stable at 62. That's getting much over delta 20. It's like delta 25 almost, because we got 86 in here. So it's working very well. And this is moving a tremendous amount of air. Some machines seem to work more off of temperature than airflow, like the GE Carry Cool, for example. Those move very little air, but the air that comes out is absolutely freezing. This one works more off of airflow, so the air coming out is not quite as cold as other units, but it's outputting a tremendous amount of air. And I like the side discharge design on these because you can feel the airflow clear across the room. Whereas sometimes the top discharge models, because the vent is so large, it doesn't come out with a lot of force, and then the air doesn't circulate as well as it could. I just can't believe how quiet this thing is. There's units that don't even run this quiet on low. I'm down to 61.2 now, so it's still getting up the pressure. And the power draw is 10.94. So it's a little bit over, but again, this is a kind of worst case scenario situation. So I'm going to let it run for a while. Let the coil cool off completely, start pulling some condensation, and we'll go take a look at it from the outside. The machine has been running for probably about a half an hour now. Let's see what this, I did plug this in before I started filming. It says about an hour, maybe a little bit more than a half an hour. 119.1 the volts, 10.38 amps, 1,186 the watts and 0.96 the power factor. The plug is a little bit warm, but not really a concerning amount. I suspect within an hour of operation it'll cool down the ambient. Probably just heated up a bit because of how high the draw was when it first started up for a while. It's down to now 82 degrees in here, and it's down from 60-something% humidity to 56. So it is doing a pretty good job cooling down the room here. This is open to the hallway and all the bedrooms, so it takes a long time to cool this room down because the conditioned air is not contained, which actually works out kind of better because if it cools too fast it won't dehumidify, and this is a bit oversized for the space. I prefer to have extra cooling for when I'm cooking, so that's why I use a 1 ton in here. And then in situations like at nighttime I'll put a fan over there in the hallway to push the air down so it dehumidifies better. Plus, if it's not that cold out, if it's not that hot out, we can tone this down to medium or low and draw the air over the coil much slower. Now let's see what our temperature is now. We are at 57, which is not a very low number, but considering that it's got 82 degrees going in, that's a good delta. And it's just so quiet. Runs really smooth. Let's go take a look from the outside. Now it looks like we got plenty of condensation coming out of there. It's very quiet. You can hardly hear the compressor. It's a Daewoo rotary. Oh, we gotta clean the house off. There's all cobwebs and stuff. So this is, I believe it's a Korean product, and it's very good quality. Today the condensation is coming out over there and over here. Last time I used it, it was coming out over here. That's why there's 2 buckets, because it would come out and kind of like blow this way. There's stupid bees everywhere. So the mosquitoes aren't good. You get the malaria or whatever it is. It actually runs pretty cool. This is not particularly hot at all. Nothing like the International series. Got good airflow top to bottom. So despite the fan being gone, it's actually, the coil is in very good condition still. I straightened the whole thing out and cleaned it up real good. I would say that coil is working at 95% or more. It's in really good shape. Now the base pan is rotted out. This is just, it's gone in the corner there, which is why the drain hole is important, because the drain hole would prevent that from happening. A lot of people will, I should say a lot of collectors will remake the base pan and fill in these holes and stuff. I just don't really have the time for that. I don't feel like this is really a problem. I will put something in here if I use this next year. I'll put like some spray foam or something over there to cover that up. But I don't feel like that's really creating any kind of mechanical issue, because the coil sits just slightly above there. The water's not sitting there, and it's not going to rust out the piece of plastic. So I just run them like this. I mean, the living room one has been going for 2 years, and this whole part is just gone. There's nothing left of it, and it's running just fine. The compressor mounts on this one are also fine. The compressor is securely in place as it's supposed to be. The LRA is 54. Can't really get many of the other specs from this angle. Coil's actually gotten like a shine to it. I Maybe I put the cleaner a little bit too strong. I tried to be so careful with that cleaner. Gee, the mosquitoes are out of control tonight. That removes a pretty good amount of moisture. I've seen it flow a lot faster than this when it's going out the side there. I'm impressed by how not hot this is, especially considering indoor and outdoor temperatures. Let's go switch it to low and see what it sounds like on low. 10.28, we're going to go down to low. 9.5, and watch the power draw increase as the head pressure goes up. You can hear the sound of the compressor changing as well as the head pressure increases. That's why I always say that you really should run these types of machines on high when it's hot out. So now, because the air is moving so slowly over the coil, 52 degrees coming out with about 82 going in. Still 87 degrees out. That is really cold. And it's just so quiet, the fan is almost inaudible. 10.3. So you can see how much under how much greater load the compressor is with the fan on low. The amp or so difference in the fan in the fan motor from high to low has now been recouped by the additional draw from the compressor pumping under higher head pressure. And so now it's actually drawing more power than it was on high. A lot of people think that units use less power on low, but that is not true. It's often not true. Not always, but quite often not the case. Now you can hear the compressor. It'll dehumidify very well running that slow. But you can hear the compressor's under a lot of load, way more than is necessary. I really think this is just a little bit too slow. This is very hot now. It's got to be at least a 15 or so degree temperature difference, I would say, in the output from the condenser. Now this is quite hot. I can't even hold my hand on the grate there anymore. I guess today we'll move this over to here. That's where it seems to be dripping from today. I like the big Carrier logo on the bottom. It's in really good condition still too. I remember seeing the backs of these quite a bit. Even up until recently, there's still a good number of these in service. They're very, very good machines. Alright, I gotta go inside. There's so many mosquitoes. .6, it's just climbing and climbing. Let's go back to high. So we're number 10.6 is where we're sitting. Actually, let's try medium first. See if that makes any difference. Yeah, it went down a little bit. So the additional power to run the fan on medium as opposed to low was more than recuperated from the lower head pressure. Alright, now we'll go to high. And it goes up because the fan is consuming more power, but as the head pressure goes down, the load on the compressor reduces, so the compressor draws less power. And now we're back to where we were. We've already recovered that additional amp or whatever it was that the fan motor was drawing on high as opposed to medium and low. And now we're going down. The compressor sounds so much quieter with the fan on high. I almost wonder if the cap is drifted on the fan motor. Although the other ones I've tested like this are kind of the same way. The low speed is very slow. I suppose it might be worth checking before I reinstall this next year if I decide to use it next year. Probably will, because I didn't get to use it much this year. I also have a 18,000 version that I might use next year. That one's in much better condition in terms of the pan. I think it's lower hours. I also have a third one of these. It's not here. Russ has it. We picked it up from I think it came from a local fire station. I'm not sure what capacity that one is, but it's 220, so it's got to be at least probably 18 or 21. A relative had a 21,000 BTU unit like this, and that was a very good machine. The original owner drilled a drain hole, so it's in mint condition. I have a video of that one on my channel. I don't know if I have a picture of the outside, but the guy was really mechanically inclined, and he built little roofs over all these units he put through the wall. It's really cool. The machines are in phenomenal condition. They're like brand new. It just goes to show if you take care of this stuff, it does last. It does maintain its luster. And even if you don't take care of it, these things still last. Take care of them. They run for decades and decades with no problem. Down to 10.3, so it draws a considerably less amount of electricity, or it draws considerably less electricity. It's so hot I can't even think straight. It draws considerably less electricity with the fan running on high, and it's much better for the machine. The compressor is drawing about 1.5 amps less, which is a considerable difference. It's still 86 degrees. It's now 6:10 in the evening. That's kind of unusual for late August. That's very, very hot. I think tonight's going to end up being an air conditioner night. Plus, it's still actually it's going up now. It's 69% humidity. It'll probably be 99% humidity by the time the sun is set. And this is a 20 amp outlet for those that were curious. Though it doesn't require it, you can certainly run a 10 amp unit on a 15 amp outlet. But this is better. I think the 20 amp outlet's better because the wire gauge is thicker. It should be, hopefully it is, a 12 gauge as opposed to a 14 gauge. So you get less voltage drop. So the machine's going to start up better and so forth. You can see it's holding the voltage. I bet it isn't a 12 gauge wire. It's still 119.4. even under that much load. If it was a 15 amp circuit with 14 gauge wire, I think it would have dropped more than that by now. The room is now 62 degrees, over 56%. That's about 10% reduction in humidity, and about a 5-degree drop more or less from when we started it about 45 minutes to an hour ago. And considering that the air is able to move down the hallway and into all 3 of the rooms down there, or actually 4, considering the bathroom, plus it can go downstairs. It's cooling a very large area, so I'm kind of impressed that it's cooling that quickly, especially with 86 degrees out. That's a very high heat load. So Overall, I would say this is a fantastic machine. I don't care that it's only, what does that make it, 32? No, 30. It's 30 years old. I don't care that it's only 30 years old and not 50 years old. It works great. We're on a 10.25 amps now. I just can't believe how quiet it is. I thought that the Feathers unit that was in here previously was quiet, but this even puts that thing to shame. This is much quieter. And that's part of the reason why I like these so much, because I really like quiet machines. And this is absolutely one of them. Let's see if we can get the fan startups now. We're in range. Here's the fan startup on the high. It's not as good on this one as it is the 18 and 21. The medium. It actually sounds kind of similar to the startup that was on the Feathers that was in here, which was also a very cool startup sound. And then here's the low. It almost sounds like a kind of like a three-phase soft start motor. And this does have the energy saver or automatic fan, whatever you want to call it. This one's calling it the energy saver, which will turn off the fan with the compressor. Now I'm not sure what the long-term effects of that are in regards to mold growth. I would expect that that would substantially increase the amount of mold that grows inside the machine, and probably gives it a higher chance of rusting out as well, because now the coil is staying wet all the time. But when it's humid out and it's not that hot and the compressor is not running a lot, I do find that it dehumidifies much better when it's on that mode, because as soon as the compressor satisfies, all that moisture just blows back into the room. And the coil, especially on a unit like this one, you've got a big 3-layer thick coil. This is a huge coil on this machine. It holds a lot of moisture. So I tend to use it on the energy saver mode. Does it save a lot of energy? Probably not, because we're just talking about running the fan, but it certainly saves some humidity. And one last thing before we wrap up this video, let's take a look at the power consumption of the fan. So on low, the fan pulls 1.08 the amps, 119 the watts, and it has a power factor of 0.9. So that could indicate that the capacitor is drifted. Let's see what it's like on high. 1 amp for what it's doing is kind of ridiculous. It's running very slowly right now. That is 1.32 the amps, 145 the watts, power factor of 0.9, and then high is 1.82 the amps, 203 the watts, power factor is 0.91. I actually think we do need to check the capacitor then, because a PSC motor should be more than 0.9 power factor. It's a shame that the fan motor draws so much power in this thing. I feel like they should have been able to get it to be less than that. Use a different kind of motor or something. You might be able to catch the spin down of the fan if you look at it from the inside here. I'll open the window and let all the cool air out. is this being so stupid today? And here we go, there's that ridiculous big yellow fan. So that's the Carrier XC series, 1 ton. Excellent machine. It's worked very well for the kitchen. It's probably be the last day of operation on this until sometime next year.